Hello there, friends. It's Jimmy Maverick. Welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Maverick podcast. And today we are going to talk about injured players and we're going to talk about coach speak and how to properly treat those items when it comes to making your fantasy analysis during the course of the year. So you definitely want to stay tuned for that. So here we go.
Listen up. It's time for the Fantasy Maverick podcast, starring the guy who's going to help you win that fantasy championship, Jimmy Maverick.
Hello there, friends. It's Jimmy Maverick. Welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Maverick podcast. And hey, before I begin today, I just wanted to remind you to please hit the like button, leave a comment, share it with your friends, and of course, subscribe. I do appreciate any feedback you can give me, and I'd love to hear from you guys. So please let me know if we're talking about any of these players or any others. Just send me a message, all right? So today we are going to talk about injuries and we're going to talk about coach speak. Because these are both interrelated right now. And for me, my overarching philosophy when it comes to fantasy drafts is that the only time you can control injuries is during the draft. So don't draft injured players. That's essentially what it comes down to. This is a long season. It's even longer this year. It's a 17-game season as opposed to 16. I've heard that it's going to go up to 18 very soon as well. It's a brutal sport. It's hard every single week. Injuries are going to happen no matter what you do, but you can minimize the risk by only drafting healthy players. It's an important thing to do. So in my app, My Perfect Fantasy Draft, any player that has an injury designation gets it's basically a negative impact on their outlook. And you know, there's a lot of players right now that have an injury designation, and some are more serious than others. You know, just this week we heard about how Antonio Gibson, the running back from Washington, is having lingering toe issues. And so that's a big problem. He's a running back. He needs to be able to push off that toe. And what they're saying is he probably should have had surgery on it at the end of last season, but here we are in June, and he's just hoping it'll go away, but it hasn't. It's been lingering. So that's a problem. So now he's got that designation, and that has reduced his outlook. It's reduced his rating, and you know, he's not as favorable on my app. In fact, I don't think I'm even recommending him right now, as he scores less than 3 stars on the outlook. You got other players, Calvin Ridley, recovering from foot surgery. Again, not great. You know, that's not what you want to hear at this point of the year. And a lot of people coming back from knee injuries. You know, you've got Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, and Tom Brady. Both those guys had both their knees worked on this past year. You know, Tom Brady is not participating. I mean, he's there. He's throwing balls, but he's not running around or anything. He's acting more like a coach than anything else in Tampa Bay. But you can see how these are problems. You don't want to draft players if they're already injured, because it's going to be a rough season anyway, and that injury can turn into a worse injury or it can create other problems. So again, as I said in my app, the way it works is the injury designation reduces their outlook by 2 stars. Now, outlook is sort of a measure of the positive and negative criteria about a client. I call it the intangibles because it's not anything that can really be quantified so much. Basically, it's a rating of 1 to 5 stars. So 1 is the worst, 5 is the best. You can't do any worse or better than those 2 scores. And I look at specific criteria about the player, and there's certain things that add stars to a player, like the volume they receive, whether it's a contract year, are they going to be a bounce back or a breakout this year? Those are the sort of things, positive things, good things that raise the outlook rating, and that's what you want to see. But there's also negative criteria, things that take stars away from the player. And we just mentioned how injury designation subtracts 2 stars from their outlook rating. But there's also things like if they're holding out, if it's a regression, if they're being part of a crowded position, you know, whether it's there's a ton of running backs or a ton of wide receivers or multiple pass catching tight ends on a team, they get negatives for that. So when you balance it all out, I want to see a player that is at least plus 2 stars net in order for me to really want to recommend them. So that's basically how it works. So, if they have a 2-star deduction for injury, chances are that's moved them lower than 3 stars. Most guys with injury designations have either a 1 or a 2-star rating, so I don't recommend them. And when it comes to the app, in calculating what I call the VORC score, which is the value, outlook, reliability, and consistency, Outlook makes up 30% of the score, of the VORC score. And so, a player that scores only 2 stars, they actually get 0 VORC points for that. So it's not helping their score at all. And if they have only 1 star, it's actually a negative. I think it's negative 10 points. So it's not it's just designed to keep you away from those kind of players. And there's some really good players right now that have injury designations. Only a couple of them actually are still recommends. Like I said, most are not, but others have so much positive things going for them that they're still a recommend. For instance, Saquon Barkley, because it's a contract year, because of the volume he's expected to receive, he still scores 4 stars, even with this negative 2-star rating against him, just because he has other things going for him that are very positive. But that is the exception, not the rule. Most of these injured players are sitting with 1 and 2 stars, and you really don't want to take them. And there's some players that I'm just waiting for them to come back. I'm hearing really good stuff. Cortland Sutton, that's an example of a guy that I'm very excited about for this year. He's got the injury designation right now, so he's not a recommend, but as soon as he gets the clearance, and they're saying he's going to be cleared to go for training camp, which is excellent. And so once that happens, he's going to have at least 4 stars on his outlook. He's going to move way up the ratings when you're in draft mode. He's going to be a player that I'm going to want to target in most of my leagues. I'm really, really excited about Cortland Sutton this year, but I just need to see him. I need to see him play. And when do I remove the injury designation? And I'll tell you what it is, man. It's the most important 2 words that I want to hear during training camp about a player, and that is full participant. That is the 2-word phrase I'm looking to hear when I'm reading about players and what they're doing in training camp. Because if they are a full participant, they are not injured anymore. If they are still being held back, if they still have no contact jerseys on, if they are still, just running routes on the sides, they're still injured. They still keep that injury designation. It's only when they become a full participant that's when they are good to go, and that's when I'm confident that, yes, I will in fact draft them. So that's what I look for. Now, related to this is coach speak. And I got to tell you, man, again, my overarching philosophy when it comes to coaches is that I do not believe what they say. I believe what they do. So I never, ever, ever believe a word they say during the off season, because they're going to talk flowers and lollipops about these players, about how awesome they are and how huge they're going to be and how they're really having a breakout preseason and all this stuff. I don't buy it. I got to see it with my own eyes. I know most of this is just smoke. They're just blowing smoke up your butt. And that's all it is. The least favorite thing that I like to hear, that I want to hear from a coach, is that such and such player is going to be ready for week 1. And I've already gotten one this year, man. I've already gotten one with Cincinnati's quarterback, Joe Burrow. Already the coaches are saying they expect him to be ready for week 1. So to me, that says he's not participating in preseason. He's not going to participate in training camp. They're going to hold him. They're going to hold him back. Obviously he's coming back from a devastating, was it a knee or an ankle? I can't remember. I think it was the ankle injury. He's the one that got the ankle injury. So I'm not confident in that. I don't want any part of Joe Burrow if there's a chance that he's going to miss time. And oftentimes that ready by week 1 means they're not actually ready till like week 4. That's what it comes down to. So that's a huge red flag in my book. But like with Cortland Sutton, they're saying he's going to be ready for training camp. for me, that makes me feel much more comfortable because there is some leeway there. He's going to keep that designation until he's a full participant there, but everything's pointing to him being ready to go. And if he's not ready to go by then, he will most definitely be ready to go for the start of the season. So, Cortland Sutton, I'm much more confident in than Joe Burrow right now. But the last thing I want to see when it comes to my players is questionable designations, doubtful designations, inactives, dealing with multiple ailments each week. I want to just stay away from those kind of players. When I'm looking at players, I want reliable players, and I want players that are not dealing with an injury. And that's what it comes down to. I want to draft myself 16 healthy players to start my season. And it doesn't mean you're not going to deal with injuries during the season. All it means is that to start the season, you are in a strong position because you're not hoping that such and such player is going to be ready to go and is going to be back to 100%. No, you're bringing in a full healthy squad and you're going to go from there. So that's where I'm at with that. And so again, there's several players right now that rate very poorly in my app, and it's because of the injury designation. Once the injury designation is removed, they're going to be fine. They'll be great. They'll be excellent players. But until that happens, I'm staying away from them. I'm not going to bother with it. In my next podcast, I'm going to talk to you about some of the lowest rated players in the first round. So my 3 lowest rated players. So you can check that out. All right. But anyway, that's it for today. So my 2 very important pieces of information to reiterate to you is, first of all, the only time you can control injuries is during the draft. And second of all, don't believe what coaches say, believe what coaches do. Those are the 2 things you need to take in during the course of this preseason. And when you're making your mock drafts, stick to it. You're going to love your teams a lot more when you do that. All right. So thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it, and have yourself a great fantasy day.